Part 2. Talk of Alexander. It is refreshing to leave Karachi and after a long journey come to the trees, the gardens and the stately tombs of Lahore. Karachi, the once arid fishing village, seems bewildered by its own size and prosperity. The city grows. Immense, expressionless office buildings buzz with the extravagant fuss of government. White villas multiply in the gleaming sun, and there are new hotels, brash as the saxophones that split the silence of their courtyards. There is also another world hiding behind this facade of progress. On the edges of the city are the hovels of the poor, the survivors of the biggest migration of human beings in all the history of the world. The herds of refugees clutching the bright star of an ideal in one hand and the poor man's ration of rice in the other. The thousands of rush huts seem to float in the mud and slime. One overturned oil stove could transform them into a terrible forest of flame. In the city are the stacks of cotton bales piled high, like gigantic slabs of stone trying to form pyramids. They are watched night and day by stalwart Pathans, who sometimes dance when their vigil is over, waving their big swords as they stamp on the earth. The cotton must be guarded against fire, for this is most of the fortune and the security of West Pakistan. The most delightful sounds in Karachi are the camel and donkey bells, enlivening the tatterdemalion of the streets. Among the shining motor cars, the men in Western clothes and the women in saris walk the dwindling number of wives in the purdar, covered from head to toes in their tawdry white burqas. They look like bell tents on the march, peering at this new world that Muhammad Ali Jinnah made through the eye-holes of their curious shrouds. They do not seem to belong to lively, emancipated Pakistan. The colors of the earth in Karachi are dun and feeble, but the ever-changing light that comes over the sea is splendid. In the morning it is watery turquoise and clean, like English light. Later in the day it becomes fierce gold. At sunset, for a brief moment, the sea is a flood of burgundy. Then comes the night, covering all the harshness with stars, hanging so low that they look like trembling tassels of silver, rather than fixed points of light. The train from Karachi arrives in Lahore in the evening. The contrast, after the barren desert, the stingy dryness of the sand, is surprising. The trees of Lahore have deep, fat roots, for the earth is also deep and well watered. They seem to be immense as oaks in an English park. In the half-darkness they are like herds of elephants moving against the sky. With the sense of depth in the earth of the Punjab comes a sense of the depth of its history. Alexander the Great passed near Lahore after he defeated Porus, ruler of the land between the Chenab and the Jhelum rivers, in 326 BC. 100 miles north of Lahore, the strong, solemn Jhelum still flows by. It is possible to stand on the riverbank and think of Alexander's flotilla making its way down to the wild meeting with the waters of the Chenab and then on to the Indus and the sea. There are great stretches of quiet, dead land on the riverbank, unchanged in this new Muslim state, where a lonely man might listen for the chanting of Alexander's oarsmen, making their slow, perilous journey home. Muhammad Ali Jinnah remained unaware of these voices of history, otherwise he might have been inspired by the figure of Porus, who rode into battle on an elephant, and Alexander astride the valiant Bucephalus. Jinnah might have comprehended and enjoyed the words they exchanged. "How shall I treat you?" Alexander asked the vanquished warrior. Porus answered, "As one king treats another." Within a few miles of where Alexander rode, at the head of his army, the monumental Pakistan Resolution was to be passed in 1940. At the vast meeting of Muslims in Lahore, within a bowl of earth called the wrestling ring, the decision was to be made that the Muslim people of India would sever themselves from the Hindus and form their own nation. Today, in the rainy season, the wrestling ring is flooded, and children play there, laughing and splashing in the water, some of them riding on the backs of buffaloes. There are no signs of Alexander upon his charger or of Jinnah, hypnotizing a multitude with the promise that they would be free and strong. Yet an alert listener might hear their similar voices, the one from more than 2,000 years ago saying, "It is sweet to live with courage," and Jinnah's voice saying, "Failure is a word unknown to me." The history of Lahore is recorded in the names of its monuments and streets, from the age of the Mughal emperors to the advent of Muhammad Ali Jinnah. The gardens and bazaars, the fortresses and the tombs reveal the 4 ages of Punjab history, from the heyday of the Mughal kings to the present regime of the free Muslims, from Akbari Mandi, the market named after Akbar the Great, who began to rule in 1556, to Jinnah Gardens, named in our time. In between are the Sikh and British names to account for the intervening centuries. There is one object set up as a monument in Lahore, Zamzama or Kim's gun, which has watched all these changes of power. The gun is beautifully engraved. It was cast in 1757 and known first by its Afghan name Malik-e-Maidan, the king of the battlefield. The name Zamzama was the soldier's onomatopoeic description of the splendid booming sound when the gun was fired. During the Sikh conquest of the Punjab, Zamzama was captured and preserved as a trophy. When the British came, they decided that its fighting days were over. To celebrate the visit of the Duke of Edinburgh in 1870, the gun was placed on a platform and declared open as a monument to peace. Today it presents a benign look to the passing traffic. Idlers lean against it, and boys climb over its barrel. Kim was perhaps the first of these. He sat, in defiance of municipal order, astride the gun Zamzama on her brick platform opposite the old Ajaib Ghair, the Wonder House, as the natives call the Lahore Museum. Who holds Zamzama, that fire-breathing dragon, holds the Punjab, for the great green bronze piece is always first of the conqueror's loot. Beyond Kim's gun, which is set within a merry-go-round of traffic, are the great names painted on walls and street ends, such as Aurangzeb Street, Shish Mahal Park, and Kochai Chabuk Sawaran, the street of the horse trainers, names that survive from Mughal times during which the first English voices were heard in the Punjab. William Hawkins came, as emissary from the court of James I, and, following him in 1615, Sir Thomas Roe, to encourage the sale of English goods in the Mughal Empire. The wars and terrors of 300 years have not banished all the ghosts of these splendid times before the Sikhs ravaged the Punjab. Within the old walled city of Lahore, in a fine big house opposite Barood Khana, another Mughal name meaning the arsenal, there lives Mian Amiruddin, who served Muhammad Ali Jinnah when the time came, and who fought hard for Pakistan. Guests at his table may hear through the wall what seems like the muffled beat of a drum. Mian Amiruddin will explain that the noise comes from the silver beaters at work, and a few minutes later his servant will bring in a dish of rich almond paste and other delicacies, wrapped in little sheets of pure silver beaten until it is gossamer thin. While his guests are eating the fragments of silver, he will tell them that it is good for the heart, and that when the Queen of Sheba went to Solomon, she took him sweets wrapped in sheets of pure gold and silver, so fine that he was able to eat them. Mian Amiruddin will then say, "The Mughal rulers of India also ate their sweetmeats wrapped in silver." The next group of street names records the terrible history of the Punjab in the early 18th century, when the Sikhs laid their ruthless hands on the land. Latif writes in his History of Lahore of the evils that followed the last of the Mughal rulers. During the commotion that followed the death of Bahadur Shah, the Sikhs emerged from their mountain retreats and laid waste the Punjab from Ambala to Lahore. Then, the mosques were defiled, the houses burnt, the women outraged, and the Muslims slaughtered. The whole country was ravaged. Mosques and tombs were razed to the ground. They slaughtered the inhabitants indiscriminately, without regard to age or sex. They butchered, bayoneted, strangled, shot down, hacked to pieces and burnt alive every Mohammedan in the place. Britons, shocked by such tales of devilry in India, might recall that about the same time there was a generation alive in England who could remember the excesses of the Civil War. That little more than 50 years had passed since Cromwell's body was dragged through London on a sledge, followed by the universal outcry and curses of the people. Of Sikh names that survive in Lahore, there are the Guru Nanak Street, named after the originator of the Sikh sect, Guru Arjun Nagar, Chowk Phula Singh, and the Chowk Janda Singh, a chowk being a square or marketplace. There is also Maharaj Ranjit Singh Road, in memory of the famous one-eyed Sikh ruler who made a treaty with the British and kept it. Set among these native street names are memorials to British India, the names planted there after the Punjab was annexed in 1849. There is the Mall, the main shopping street, and other good English names like Egerton Road, Cooper Road, and Nicholson Road. The pattern of British rule in the last half of the 19th century comes alive in these streets. There is Mayo Road, named after the great Viceroy, who was assassinated in the Andaman Islands in 1872. There are Aitchison Park and the Lawrence Road, in memory of Sir John, later Lord Lawrence, the saviour of India in his time, who was Lieutenant Governor of the Punjab from 1846 to 1859, and then Viceroy after Lord Elgin in 1864. But there are signs already that this is part of a new state, eager to plant its own memorials on the land. The Lawrence Gardens have been changed to Jinnah Gardens, and the sunken rose garden within the park is named after Miss Fatima Jinnah. The memories in the gardens are of neither Mughal, Sikh, nor Briton. Between the artificial bills, aflame with poppies, cinerarias, and carnations, is a sweep of grass. Here, early in the morning, the robust young Punjabis wrestle and lift weights, pausing now and then to enjoy the sight of their own muscles, in big, incongruous looking-glasses erected for this purpose on the lawn. They are the generation in which Muhammad Ali Jinnah had every hope young men, excited by tomorrow rather than yesterday, who are to be the real makers of Pakistan.